Hey everyone, and welcome to this explainer. Today we're doing something really fascinating. We're going to peel back the layers of 7th century history to look at a dramatic, real-time response to a massive political standoff found in Surah Sad. Seriously, if you've ever wanted to understand that timeless clash between divine truth and just raw human ego, you are absolutely in the right place. Let's dive in.
Picture this for a second. Imagine the pure tension in the room. You've got the most powerful chieftains of Makkah. These are men who are completely accustomed to having absolute, unquestioned authority, and they literally storm into the home of a dying patriarch. And their goal? They're there to demand that his nephew stop preaching a message that is threatening their entire way of life. This isn't just dry history, It's a profound, real-world study in power, pride, and resistance.
All right, Section 1, the showdown at Abu Talib's house. To really get a grip on this chapter of the Quran, we first have to anchor ourselves in the exact historical crisis that triggered its revelation. So we're looking at sometime between the 5th and 10th year of prophethood, and the political climate in Mecca is just boiling over. The elite Quraysh leaders approach the Prophet's uncle, Abu Talib, who is at this point gravely ill. They are desperately looking for a way to shut down the Islamic message. They knew that if they harmed the Prophet after Abu Talib died, it would look like this cowardly, dishonorable betrayal. So they try to force a truce, basically saying, look, leave our gods alone and we'll leave you alone.
But the Prophet's response? Completely uncompromising. He doesn't offer them some comfortable political middle ground. Instead, he asks for just one single phrase, La ilaha illallah, telling them it would give them dominion over Arabia and beyond. But of course, that one phrase completely shatters their entire polytheistic worldview. And here's where it gets really incredible. Classical scholarship actually confirms this text. Renowned sources like Tafsir Ibn Kathir verify that the opening verses of Surah Sad weren't just some abstract theology floating in the clouds. They were a direct divine transcript of that exact tense meeting and the elite's completely shocked reaction to it. So boom, the revelation drops right into that incredibly heavy atmosphere of rejection. It mysteriously opens with just the letter Sad, and then immediately follows up with this powerful oath, swearing by the dignified, reminding nature of the Quran itself. It's literally a divine assertion of authority slammed right down in the face of human arrogance. Moving right along to Section 2, the disease of pride, Izzah, and arrogance. Following that explosive opening, the verses waste absolutely zero time diagnosing the core spiritual sickness that made these leaders walk away. The text explicitly calls out their Izzah. Now, in this context, Izzah means false pride, tribal arrogance, and this deep-seated, stubborn dissension. It proves their rejection wasn't about having an intellectual debate, right? It was 100% about defending their own worldly power and maintaining the social status quo. Let's actually look at their recorded reaction, because it's telling. The Quraysh were absolutely astounded. They basically scoffed, asking how one single god could possibly run the entire universe and replace their 360 highly specialized idols. To them, the sheer simplicity of monotheism was this bizarre, curious thing. Why? Because it directly threatened their economic control over the religious tourism in the region. So to give the Meccan elites a massive reality check, the text points them to a literal graveyard of empires. I mean, we're talking about heavy hitters here. Nations far more powerful, wealthy, and established than the Quraysh, like the pharaohs and the people of Ad. And what happened to them? They were completely wiped out for the exact same arrogant disbelief. It's a pretty stark warning. All the worldly power in the universe cannot defend you against divine justice. Which brings us to Section 3, Prophetic Patience, Models of Leadership. We are going to shift away from the arrogant elite now. And the narrative provides the Prophet Muhammad, and honestly us as well, with powerful role models of true leadership. First up, we are introduced to Prophet Dawud, or David. Now, this guy was a king with immense worldly power. He's literally called the man of strength. But unlike the Quraysh, his incredible worldly might was perfectly balanced by this deep, deep humility. He was constantly turning back and repenting to God. He's living proof that having power and having piety are definitely not mutually exclusive. Now here's the absolute kicker, how Dawud handles a sudden trial. Out of nowhere, 2 men appear in his private quarters demanding a legal ruling. Caught off guard, Dawud makes a hasty judgment without even hearing the second party's side. But the second he realizes he made a procedural error, He doesn't double down in arrogance to protect his ego. No, his immediate realization and physical frustration show us that true greatness is about quick repentance, not pretending you're infallible.
Then, on the flip side, we have Prophet Ayyub, or Job. If Dawud is the model for handling extreme power, Ayyub is the ultimate masterclass in handling absolute powerlessness. Completely stripped of his health, his wealth, and his family, he still maintained this unshakable faith through unimaginable suffering. His story tells us that true honor is actually an internal state of patience, completely regardless of what's happening to you externally.
Next is Section 4, the trial of Suleiman. And we're going to clear up a pretty massive historical myth here regarding his specific trial.
So, you've probably heard the wildly fabricated myth about a demon stealing his magical ring and taking over his kingdom. Total ancient fable stuff. But the authentic, source-backed Tafsir reveals something much more profound. His actual trial was grounded in just a momentary lapse of reliance on God. He forgot to say inshallah when planning for the future. It's an incredible lesson about maintaining humility, even when you control vast, unimaginable resources.
And just a quick side note on that, to make sure you're getting the true story and avoiding those baseless fables, scholars highly, highly recommend relying on deeply respected classical texts like Tafsir al-Tabari and Tafsir ibn Kathir. These foundational works cut through the myths to give you the rigorous, source-backed history of the Quranic verses. All right, Section 5, the two fates, ultimate destinations. Building on those lessons of patience and pride, we pivot now to the ultimate so what of all this, the undeniable cosmic consequences of our choices here on Earth.
The text lays out this incredibly stark contrast. On one hand, you've got this serene eternity for the righteous, open gates, absolute peace, and total abundance. But for the arrogant, it's a horrifying psychological and physical reality. And what's truly fascinating is how it describes the transgressors. They are going to spend eternity bitterly blaming each other. Those very elite alliances they formed back in Makkah to suppress the truth, they will completely disintegrate into eternal mutual hatred.
And that leads us to the climax, Section 6, the origin of pride, a cosmic rebellion. We're rewinding past Makkah, past those ancient empires, all the way back to the literal dawn of creation, to see where this sickness actually started. We witness Iblis, Satan, making his infamous, arrogant refusal to bow to Adam. And his justification? It was so simple and so arrogant. He says, I am better than him. You created me from fire and created him from clay. It's this racist, fundamentally flawed logic based entirely on a perceived superiority of his origins. He literally valued his material makeup over a direct, explicit command from God. And wow, it just brings the entire narrative arc full circle, doesn't it? Think about it. Those Meccan leaders standing right there in Abu Talib's house, refusing to submit to the message just because it challenged their social rank, they were unknowingly copy-pasting the exact cosmic rebellion of Satan himself. Their 7th century tribal pride was simply a human echo of Iblis's original sin of arrogance. So seeing how this identical story has echoed from the literal dawn of time, through the halls of ancient kings, right up to a tense political standoff in Makkah, it leaves us with one massive question. Will you cultivate the quick humility of someone like Dawud, or will you let your own ego echo that primordial disease of pride? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep seeking knowledge, and always keep challenging your assumptions.